Am I the antagonist because I forgot to mention a family friends will be joining our Christmas dinner? This Christmas, my girlfriend, 29 years old, and I, 32 years old, are going to my parents' place for dinner. It will be the first time my girlfriend meets my parents in person, although she has met them before on Zoom. This will also be the first time I introduce her to my siblings. There is a family friend, let's call her Susie, who has been close to my siblings and me since we were kids. Susie's mom was best friends with my mom for a long time. After her dad passed away in 2005, Susie and her mom started celebrating Christmas with my family. Unfortunately, her mom passed away during the pandemic, so now Susie is the only one who joins us during the holidays. A couple of nights ago, I showed my girlfriend pictures of last year's Christmas dinner, and she asked who Susie was since she didn't look like one of my siblings. I explained that Susie is just a family friend. My girlfriend asked if Susie was dating one of my brothers, but I clarified that she is not. I then explained why Susie joins us for Christmas every year, as mentioned in this post. My girlfriend asked if Susie would be joining us this year as well, and I said yes. She was upset that I hadn't mentioned this before, as she's traveling to meet my parents and siblings and feels like I didn't consider it important enough to inform her. Since that night, she has been distant and unsure about joining the Christmas dinner. I don't recall saying anything that could have led my girlfriend to believe I have any romantic interest in Susie, and my girlfriend is not usually insecure. However, she now feels like the cousin you only see during the holidays and forget about for the rest of the year, even though Susie is mostly close to my parents and sister. My girlfriend's reaction seems excessive for something I thought was unimportant to mention. Am I the asshole for not telling her that Susie would be joining us for Christmas dinner? While it would have been considerate to mention that Susie would be joining Christmas dinner, it doesn't make you an asshole for forgetting to do so. It sounds like you didn't think it was an important detail, and that is understandable. Your girlfriend's reaction seems disproportionate to the situation, and it's not fair for her to be upset with you for a small omission. It's important for her to understand that Susie is a long-standing family friend, and her presence at Christmas dinner is a tradition. However, it could also be helpful to apologize for not mentioning it and reassure your girlfriend that Susie's presence doesn't change anything between you. Am I the antagonist for canceling my best friend's bachelorette party after she fired me as a bridesmaid? I am a full-time student and relying on student loans to support myself alongside a few part-time work hours. So far, I have spent approximately $1,000 on my best friend's wedding. This includes $350 on the bridesmaid's dress, $350 on the flight home to attend the wedding, as I am away for school, and around $100 on the gift for her bridal shower. The maid of honor is currently pregnant and facing some difficulties. She asked me to plan the bachelorette party, and I agreed. I planned it meticulously, keeping it a surprise. I shared the plan with the other girls, and after they all agreed, I proceeded to book everything. I spent an additional $400 on a limo for bar hopping, as the bride loves it, and booked a $700 Airbnb for us to stay in afterwards. As of now, the other bridesmaids have not contributed financially, but they assured me they would reimburse me later. About a month later, the bride removed me and two other girls from the bridal party group chat, accompanied by a paragraph stating that we were no longer invited due to not honoring her wishes. When we asked for clarification, she did not respond. However, 2 days later, she added us back and apologized, citing stress as the reason. We discussed it and resolved the issue. Yesterday, the same situation happened again, except this time, I was the only one removed. The bride sent me a paragraph, berating me for not respecting her wishes and expressing regret for inviting me to be a bridesmaid. When I asked for an explanation, she remained silent. Today, she messaged me to apologize for her outburst, stating that she'd like me to attend the wedding, but not as a bridesmaid since it would make her uncomfortable. She also demanded that I should not wear the bridesmaid's dress I had already purchased. I respectfully declined, explaining that I couldn't afford another dress and didn't want to make her uncomfortable on her special day. In response, she lashed out, suggesting I take more from my student loans to buy a second dress. Consequently, I canceled the Airbnb and the limo. I informed the other bridesmaids about the situation, and they agreed that it was a fair decision. Apparently, one of them informed the bride about the secret bachelorette party, leading her to message me, calling me an asshole, and blaming me for ruining her entire wedding since she now lacks the time and financial means to plan a new bachelorette party. I managed to get a refund for my flight, so ultimately I'm only out approximately $450 for a wedding I'm no longer invited to. Am I the asshole for canceling the party and obtaining a refund? You are not the asshole for canceling the bachelorette party and getting your money back. You have been more than accommodating and have already spent a significant amount of money for your friend's wedding. The bride's erratic behavior and lack of communication are not your fault. It is understandable that you would not want to spend even more money on a second dress, especially considering your financial situation. Additionally, the bride's decision to kick you out of the bridal party and then invite you back, only to kick you out again, shows a lack of respect for your feelings and efforts. It is unfair of her to expect you to continue participating in her wedding under these circumstances. Ultimately, canceling the party and getting your refund was the right decision given the circumstances. It is not your responsibility to fix the situation or ensure that another bachelorette party is planned. The bride and the other bridesmaids should take responsibility for their own finances and finding alternative solutions. Am I the antagonist for letting a kid with a learning disorder drive me and my kids? It may sound like a bizarre story, but trust me, I'm serious. I, female 38, and my husband, male 35, have 3 kids, an 8-year-old boy, a 6-year-old girl, and a 3-year-old girl. We also occasionally foster kids, mostly younger ones and for short periods of time. However, a few months ago, my Child Protective Services CPS agent approached me and kindly asked if we could take in an older, troubled teen. For privacy reasons, let's call him Ryan. Ryan is 16, and despite his issues, he's a wonderful kid. He has a learning disability and struggles academically, but excels in practical skills. Although not particularly gifted in terms of intelligence, he has been severely neglected. Ryan also suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder, as he is the sole survivor of a terrible car accident. It's so severe that he is unable to willingly and without restraint get into a car. In fact, the last time we attempted it, he broke the window trying to get out. However, he does have a driver's license, which he has had for about 6 months now. Fast forward to yesterday. I needed to go to the mall to buy Christmas presents. Initially, I had asked my husband to do it a month ago, but he still hadn't gotten around to it. It wasn't possible for me to leave the kids alone at home, and I didn't want to force Ryan to babysit them either. I also didn't want to leave Ryan alone, as I wanted him to feel included in a family activity and choose his own Christmas present. The mall is quite far away from our house, and we needed to take the highway to get there. Ryan told me he couldn't get in the car. Not wanting to argue with a traumatized child, I handed him the keys and said, "Okay, drive." To my surprise, Ryan turned out to be an excellent driver. As a driving instructor myself, I can tell if someone has a talent for driving or not. Ryan definitely has the talent. He's a natural and connects with the car and the road. He brakes and accelerates smoothly, and he can park without parking assist even though he doesn't have much experience. He remains alert but not overly anxious. Honestly, I felt safer in the car with him than with my husband, who is constantly on his phone while driving. We made it to the mall and back without any issues whatsoever. It's important to note that Ryan is an inexperienced driver, and it was his first time driving a truck. When my husband got home, I told him I had bought the presents, and he asked if I left Ryan with the kids. I said no, I took him along. My husband completely lost control. He said it was incredibly irresponsible of me to let a kid drive the entire family on the highway. He even went as far as calling me a horrible mother and used a derogatory term referring to Ryan. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. He had insulted my son, regardless of whether he is a foster child or not, so I yelled at him and insulted his driving ability, which he is very self-conscious about. So, was I in the wrong here? In this situation, you made the best decision given the circumstances. Ryan has a severe trauma associated with being in a car, and you did not want to force him or argue with him about it. Giving him the keys was a way to include him in the family activity and allow him to pick out his own Christmas present. Additionally, you mentioned that you are a driving instructor and felt safer with Ryan's driving skills than your husband's. Your husband's reaction was uncalled for, especially using derogatory language towards Ryan. Insulting your husband's driving ability in response may not have been the best approach, but it is understandable that you were defending Ryan. It would be important for you and your husband to have a calm and open discussion about the situation, addressing each other's concerns and finding a resolution moving forward. Am I the antagonist for letting my son eat the stew my stepdaughter prepared for her friends? I have been married to my wife for 5 months, living together for almost a year before marriage. My stepdaughter Anne, 16 years old, used to split time between her parents but is currently with us full-time as her father will be overseas until August. I also have a son, Leo, 17 years old, who lives mostly with my ex-wife and with me on weekends. The kids go to different schools and have a decent relationship. My wife and Anne are great cooks. My wife's parents came from another country, and she and Anne regularly make delicious exotic dishes from their homeland. Both my son and I appreciate the dishes, though we still have trouble identifying them. A few days ago, Leo stopped by for something he left. Nobody was home, so he let himself in. Leo noticed a big pot of stew on the stove, and it smelled delicious. He asked if he could have some. My wife or Anne often make large batches of food when they cook, so it was not surprising to find it there. I told Leo to go ahead and just leave some for us. Now Leo is a wrestler and he eats a lot. A while later, he sent me a photo to show me how much stew was left in the pot. I could tell there were at least 5 servings left, so I didn't think much of it. An hour later, Anne called me upset. She asked if I had eaten the stew she made. It was a special recipe from her grandma, and she had invited her friends over to try it. She said the stew was meant to feed 9 people, and she invited 6 friends, but someone had eaten almost half of it. I told her it was Leo and apologized. I suggested she could order pizza for her friends and I would pay for it. Anne said it was not enough compensation for her friends who were looking forward to her stew, which she spent hours preparing. However, she did accept my offer. When I later apologized and had Leo call to apologize himself, she said she accepted our apologies, but she has been quiet around me since. My wife later told me that I should not just allow Leo to eat whatever he wants in our kitchen, as sometimes she and Anne have plans for their dishes. I think it's completely ridiculous that Leo is not allowed to eat things from his own father's kitchen. If my wife or Anne have a special plan for their food, they should put a note on it. Otherwise, things in the kitchen should be available for everyone, as the kitchen is a communal space for food, and I pay for most of the groceries. I believe that if Leo is not allowed to have the food, it would make him feel excluded from the family. I am willing to talk to him about portion control, but other than that, I think he should be able to eat what he wants in the kitchen, unless there's a note saying not to. Am I the asshole? In this situation, it seems like a miscommunication occurred between you, Anne, and Leo. You believed that the stew on the stove was fair game for anyone in the family to eat, as it typically is with other communal food items in the kitchen. It would have been helpful if Anne had put a note on the stew or communicated her plans for it, especially considering it was a special recipe that she wanted to share with her friends. However, it's important to acknowledge Anne's feelings and apologize for the mistake. It was kind of you to offer to pay for pizza as compensation, but it's understandable that Anne still feels disappointed. Moving forward, it would be wise to establish better communication and set some guidelines for food in the kitchen to avoid future misunderstandings. Additionally, discussing portion control with Leo is a good idea to ensure that everyone gets their fair share of the food. While it's understandable that you want Leo to feel like part of the family, it's also important to respect the effort and plans that Anne and your wife put into their cooking.